This is Dante Williams, and you're watching
DONTAE'S
Boxing Nation.
This is Showtime Sean Porter.
Filipino Flash, Jesse Burns.
This is Al Bernstein. You're watching DONTAE'S Boxing Nation.
Hi, I'm Sugar Ray.
Chick Shape.
Sergio the last name more.
DONTAE'S Boxing Nation.
Boom, 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 boom. Yo, this is Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder.
My name is GENNADY GOLOVKIN.
And you're watching
DONTAE'S Boxing Nation.
Oscar, you said you hope Keith Thurman is not the next Golovkin, so I have to ask you, who do you think is better out of the two? Thurman or Golovkin?
Thurman.
Okay.
It's better? Yeah, Thurman.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely. Thurman. Thurman is... See, one thing about Golovkin, he's tough. He's a strong fighter. When Canelo was sparring with him up in Big Bear, yeah, Canelo mentioned, look, he's strong. He's very strong. It's, you know, a lot of fighters are strong. You know, and there's ways of beating strong fighters. But one thing about Keith Thurman is that he knows how to move. He lateral, uses combinations. He thinks in the ring. He's like, Golovkin is a fighter who has to beat you with his power. He has to. He can't beat you with moving side to side or going back. See, one thing about Golovkin is that I learned, because I've studied him, is that if he moves back, he can't fight. He can't fight. He can't.
That Golovkin wasn't at his best. This was not a sharp effort in particular by Gennady Golovkin.
It was a lot of arm. It was a lot of arm punches by Triple G. There was a lot of sucking air in, and I didn't see the snap on his punches. I seen him following more than cutting the ring off and actually throwing punches, you know, with meaning to it, to the body and to the head. Tonight was a night I think he was vulnerable than any fight that ever watched him.
I thought he was vulnerable too, particularly if Brook could have been more precise with his counter punches.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? Well, I'll tell you right now, Danny Jacobs, he must really be licking his chops right now after watching Gennady Golovkin's performance against the welterweight champion of the world, KELL Brook. Now, before I talk about this fight, the first thing I want to mention is, if you guys notice, I played that clip and you heard what Jim Lampley and Bernard Hopkins had to say about Gennady Golovkin's performance. The reason why I bring that up is because I want it to be no mistake that this is unanimous when it comes to me and everyone else stating the obvious, that Gennady Golovkin, he was extremely exposed against the welterweight champion KELL Brook tonight. Golovkin, he gets the win, and that's good for him. But a performance like this, we seen Gennady Golovkin bleeding. We seen Gennady Golovkin backing up, looking frustrated in this corner. Whenever KELL Brook went on the attack, Gennady Golovkin looked very uncomfortable. He looked a lot like he did when Willie Monroe was attacking him. Golovkin is a fighter. He's an aggressive fighter. You can tell that Gennady Golovkin, he cannot take it as well as he can give it. You know, the fight that we seen last night is a perfect example of dealing with adversity. I'm talking about the Robert Easter versus Richard Commey fight. In that fight, you had two fighters that were in the same division, naturally the same size, both had power, both undefeated. So it wasn't, you know, like welterweight versus middleweight. But in that fight, you seen both fighters get hurt. You seen both fighters be pushed to the limit, and they persevered. They basically fought harder once they got hit with the biggest shot that almost knocked them down, or whatever the case may be. But when I see Gennady Golovkin, when I see how he reacts to this welterweight KELL Brook, hitting him with hard punches and combinations and uppercuts, etc., etc., Gennady Golovkin does not respond the same way some of these fighters, or some of the very special fighters, do. You could slowly see the unraveling of Golovkin as the rounds progressed. Would you guys agree with that? And I'm asking all of you guys who's listening right now, would you guys agree that you could definitely see an unraveling of Golovkin as these rounds progress? It's very obvious, right? Gennady Golovkin is a fighter that falls apart if you back him up. Oscar De La Hoya, he said it. Matter of fact, I may add that clip in here. This is exactly what Oscar De La Hoya said about Gennady Golovkin like a year ago. He said the guy is strong, he has a lot of power, but he can't fight backing up. This is what Oscar De La Hoya said, and this is exactly what we've seen. Gennady Golovkin is going to have a lot of problems, man, if he faces a fighter like Danny Jacobs. And you know, the thing with Danny Jacobs is he's been knocked out before, so I don't really know, if Danny Jacobs, he wins that fight for sure. I don't really know what type of chin Danny Jacobs has because he's been knocked out before. And I'm not even talking about Danny Jacobs just winning the fight, but I'm telling you guys right now, win or lose, if Danny Jacobs fights Gennady Golovkin, I promise you, Golovkin will look bad in that fight. Win or lose, Golovkin will look bad in a Danny Jacobs fight, because look at what Kell Brook did. And you could clearly see the disparity when it comes to size. Like, as I was watching this fight and I was saying to myself, Golovkin, he is looking very vulnerable in this fight. I said it throughout the entire fight, right? Kell Brook gets hurt real bad in the first round. Next thing you know, he wakes up, he comes back, he starts to catch Golovkin with shots. Now Golovkin, he looks a little discouraged. He looks a little deterred. So the question is, if a welterweight can discourage, frustrate, and expose Gennady Golovkin, if a welterweight can back up Gennady Golovkin and make him look very uncomfortable, can you guys imagine what a powerful, very athletic middleweight can do to Gennady Golovkin? You guys have to understand something. Kell Brook has power. He has power for a welterweight. It could be argued that Danny Jacobs has the exact same type of power that Golovkin has. But see, Golovkin has a major problem right now, because from what I just watched right now, you don't even have to have the same amount of power that Golovkin has to get his respect. All you have to do is be able to fight back. You have to push Golovkin back, and you have to be very confident in the ring. This is what Kell Brook did. And once again, this tells me that if Golovkin gets in the ring with a Danny Jacobs, oh my goodness, if he goes up to 168, just think about this for a second, guys. Golovkin's most difficult fight was against a welterweight. His most difficult fight was against a welterweight. The fight only went, 4 or 5 rounds? And did you see Golovkin's face, guys? I mean, forget about Kell Brook's face, because he's a welterweight. He's supposed to have a beat up face. Golovkin, his face was starting to show the wear and tear within the first 4 rounds. Now just imagine if he's in the ring with a Danny Jacobs. Imagine if he's in the ring with Gilberto Ramirez. Imagine if he's in the ring with James DeGale. We don't even need to bring up Andre Ward anymore, because I can tell you right now, I truly believe there are many more fighters out there that can beat Golovkin, and we don't even have to bring up Andre Ward's name anymore. I'm telling you right now, after what I just watched, Golovkin would have a very hard time against any of the much better super middleweights, and even against the middleweight champion Danny Jacobs. I believe a lot of fans right now, after watching this performance tonight, they are giving Danny Jacobs a much better chance to win that fight. You know, I was thinking of the Rocky movie when I was watching this fight, because you clearly see Golovkin playing the Ivan Drago role. And after about the third round, all of a sudden you see Golovkin bleeding for the first time. You see him battered and bruised for the first time. I even caught Golovkin sitting in this corner. He was rubbing his nose and looking at his glove like, oh my God, am I bleeding? That was like a scene out of Rocky where, you know, you find out he's not a machine. He's human, obviously, right? This is what we've seen in this fight. Gennady Golovkin was exposed, guys. You know, once again, it's time to really look at the contrast so you guys can see this shit very clearly. You guys notice Golovkin was facing a smaller guy that moved up 2 weight classes, right? Remember when Floyd Mayweather, when he fought Juan Manuel Marquez? If you think of the weight jump, it's pretty much the exact same thing. So the question I have for you fans is, how come Golovkin could not dominate KELL BROOK the way Floyd Mayweather dominated Juan Manuel Marquez? To make it even worse for Golovkin, do you guys know that when Floyd Mayweather fought Marquez, Marquez was considered pound for pound number 2, the best fighter in the entire world? Why wasn't Marquez able to expose Floyd Mayweather the way KELL BROOK was able to expose Gennady Golovkin? Let's look at some other comparisons when it comes to other fights. All the fights, all the big, let's say all the, you know, the big name fighters today that are receiving high praise from either the professional boxing community or the media, whichever. You look at fighters like Terrence Crawford. You look at fighters like Andre Ward. You look at fighters like Errol Spence, Keith Thurman. You look at all of these fighters, right? But the main fighters I want to focus on for this comparison, let's look at Terrence Crawford for now. You guys notice when Terrence Crawford stepped up in competition, he was still dominant, right? When he stepped up and he fought against Victor Postol, it took him about 3-4 rounds to process the data and figure out Victor Postol, but after that, he took complete charge of the fight, right? By way of contrast, when you look at Gennady Golovkin against KELL BROOK, this was Golovkin's toughest opponent. This was Golovkin's toughest challenge. And Gennady Golovkin looked extremely vulnerable, right? But Golovkin looked vulnerable against a guy that was 2 weight classes smaller than him. 2 weight classes smaller than him. Okay? This was Golovkin's, one more time, this was Golovkin's most difficult fight. Golovkin said before this fight that this is my hardest fight, this is my toughest fight, this is my biggest step up. Golovkin said that. I didn't say that. That's what Golovkin said, right? Now, I happen to agree with Golovkin, but I just want to make it clear that Golovkin said this himself. And now, after watching the fight, everything that Golovkin said about KELL BROOK, he was right. KELL BROOK turned out, or I should say KELL BROOK, it turned out he exposed Gennady Golovkin more than any other fighter has ever done. This is very telling, guys. This is very telling. I'm really interested in hearing what the decaf has to say after this performance. Because you can't say that we're being biased by criticizing how vulnerable Golovkin looked, because even the Grand Wizard of the decafs, Jim Lampley, he even admitted that Golovkin did not look good going up against this welterweight, right? He even admitted that Golovkin looked very vulnerable going up against a welterweight champion. So how do you guys explain this or disagree with our assessment? I'm talking to the decafs right now. You can't. You can't. Gennady Golovkin is going to have a very difficult time dealing with other fighters that have the exact same type of power and confidence that an undefeated fighter like Gennady Golovkin has today. You know, I told you guys that I truly believed if KELL BROOK was still standing after, you know, the first 4 rounds and he hadn't been hurt real bad or anything like that, you know, this may be a real competitive fight. And what's funny is KELL BROOK was actually hurt real bad in the first round, but he rallied back. This is something else I noticed, and I'm not sure, I may have said this already, but I'm going to say it again if I didn't. Do you guys notice how KELL BROOK, when KELL BROOK got hurt by Golovkin, KELL BROOK, he fought even harder. But do you guys notice when KELL BROOK was catching Golovkin with hard punches, we slowly started to see Golovkin fall apart. The more the fight progressed, the more Golovkin started to just look like a one-dimensional, wild swinging, aggressive fighter, just like what Bernard Hopkins said at the beginning of this video that I did when I played the clip. That's what Bernard Hopkins said. He was just coming in, he wasn't using any head movement. He started to look desperate. That's how Golovkin started to look. He started to look very desperate. And with that being said, this is not a good sign for Golovkin's future. He's 34 years old. The best opponent he's ever faced is a welterweight champion. Can you guys imagine if KELL BROOK was a natural middleweight? If KELL BROOK was able to do that as a welterweight, can you guys imagine what KELL BROOK would have been able to do to Golovkin if he was a natural middleweight? I'm telling you guys right now, if KELL BROOK was a natural middleweight, or if Golovkin was a natural welterweight, KELL BROOK would have knocked out Gennady Golovkin. He would have knocked him out. I truly believe that. I truly believe that. And I'm telling you guys right now, Golovkin versus Danny Jacobs, if that fight comes to fruition, when you watch that fight, don't blink. Don't blink. I'm telling you right now, I'm predicting. I'm not going to predict a winner right now, but I'm telling you right now, in that fight, Golovkin gets hurt bad. Regardless if Golovkin wins or loses that fight, Golovkin gets hurt really bad in that fight. Gennady Golovkin is open all day for a basic jab, right uppercut. I seen it from the second round on, and that's when KELL BROOK, he started to land that combination. That combination is what busted Golovkin's nose. Left jab, right uppercut. I'm telling you, Golovkin is open for that combination all night. You know, some people said that KELL BROOK wouldn't be able to tie up Gennady Golovkin, but he was able to do it. He was able to work when he wanted to work. He was able to tie up Gennady Golovkin. He was able to counter him. He was able to back him up. KELL BROOK was almost able to do whatever he wanted to do in the ring. But I just seen, as I was watching the fight, and I was saying to my in-law, I was watching the fight and I said to myself, no matter how good KELL BROOK does, you can clearly see that he can't sleep for 2 seconds in this fight. Soon as he sleeps for a second, he could possibly get stopped or hurt really bad. And that's pretty much what happened in this fight. I told you guys once again, with my Street Fighter analogy, KELL BROOK, he came in this fight with a handicap. He had a 20% health bar. Golovkin had a 100% health bar. So while Golovkin was able to make a lot of mistakes and get caught with hellacious shots, KELL BROOK didn't have that luxury. So with that being said, guys, I'll probably do another video talking about this, but I'm gonna go ahead and upload this video and get ready for this Roman Gonzalez fight. Guys, this is a hell of a day or a hell of a night for boxing, ain't it? because we just seen Gennady Golovkin get exposed against the welterweight champion, and now Roman Gonzalez is going up against a very tough, durable, strong, bigger, undefeated champion, and Carlos Cedras, and he may get exposed tonight as well. So this is an interesting night of boxing. But I'm gonna go ahead and put this video together, and I'll catch up with you guys. I'm on to the next one.
Hi, you're watching Dante's Boxing Nation. Woo!